They live on my street, sir. Those were the words that stopped him. Before we begin, if stories that touch your heart, change the way you see the world, and stay with you long after the video ends mean something to you, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us share stories like this with more people, and you never know which story might change your life next. The rain had been falling since morning, the kind that soaks into the cracks of the city and brings out the smell of rust, wet concrete, and forgotten dreams. Richard Hale sat in the back of his black luxury car, scrolling absently through his phone, barely listening as his driver complained about traffic. Richard had everything most people prayed for: money, power, respect. His face appeared in business magazines, his name echoed in boardrooms, and his signature could move millions. Yet his eyes were tired, hollow in a way no amount of success could hide. That day, like many others, felt meaningless. The car slowed to a stop at a red light on a street Richard barely noticed anymore. He had driven past it hundreds of times, always looking straight ahead, always in a hurry to get somewhere more important. As the car idled, a soft knock came from the window. Richard frowned, irritated, and turned his head. Outside stood a little girl, no more than 10 years old. Her dress was thin and faded, her shoes mismatched, her hair pulled back with a broken clip. She held a small basket of flowers, most of them wilted from the rain. Her eyes were wide, not begging, not demanding, just tired and strangely brave. The driver rolled his eyes and started to wave her away, but Richard raised his hand. "What do you want?" Richard asked through the cracked window, his voice sharper than he intended. The girl hesitated, then spoke softly. "They live on my street, sir." Richard blinked. "Who lives on your street?" She swallowed. "People like you. People who don't see us." The light was still red. Cars honked behind them. Richard felt something tighten in his chest, an uncomfortable sensation he couldn't name. "What do you mean?" he asked. The girl lifted the basket slightly. "My mama is sick. I sell flowers to buy medicine. But nobody stops. They look past me like I'm not real." Her words weren't dramatic. She wasn't crying. That made them worse. Richard glanced at her hands, small, cold, trembling slightly. For a moment, he saw a reflection of himself as a boy, standing outside a closed factory with his father, watching men in suits walk by as if they didn't exist. He had buried that memory under decades of ambition. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a large bill, far more than the flowers were worth. "Here," he said, "keep the flowers." The girl didn't smile. She shook her head. "No, sir. If you help, please see us. Come to our street." The light turned green. The driver looked back, confused. "Sir." Richard hesitated, then surprised even himself. "Take the next turn." The driver obeyed. They followed the girl as she ran barefoot through narrow alleys and broken sidewalks. The buildings grew older, the paint peeled, the windows cracked. Children played with bottle caps. Elderly men sat on crates, coughing. The car finally stopped because it couldn't go any farther. "This is it," the girl said. Richard stepped out of the car. His expensive shoes sank into a puddle. People stared. Some looked curious, others suspicious. This world was invisible to him until now, despite being only minutes away from his glass towers and marble floors. The girl led him to a small room behind a closed shop. Inside, a woman lay on a thin mattress, her face pale, her breathing shallow. She tried to sit up when she saw Richard, embarrassed by the stranger and the mess. "Mama, it's okay," the girl said gently. "He came to see us." Richard stood frozen. He had donated to hospitals, funded charities with his name engraved on walls, yet this single room broke him in a way none of that ever had. "What's your name?" he asked the woman. "Lena," she whispered. "And yours?" he asked the girl. "Aya." That night, Richard didn't go to his meeting. He didn't go home. He made calls, to doctors, to pharmacies, to people who owed him favors. Lena was admitted to a hospital before midnight. Aya sat quietly in the waiting room, her feet dangling, watching Richard as if afraid he might disappear. Over the following weeks, Richard returned to the street. At first, people didn't trust him. They had seen promises before. But he kept coming. He listened. He learned names. He learned stories. He learned how close desperation lived to his own comfort. Aya's mother recovered slowly. Aya started school with new shoes that were still a little too big. Richard paid for teachers, for repairs, for clean water. But something else changed too, inside him. The constant noise in his head began to quiet. One evening, as he walked down the street with Aya, she asked him, why do you come here now? Richard thought for a long time before answering. Because I forgot where I came from. And you reminded me. Months turned into a year. Richard restructured his businesses, not just to make money, but to create jobs in places like I's Street. People said he had softened, that he had lost his edge. He didn't care. For the first time, he slept peacefully. On the anniversary of the day they met, Aya handed him a small paper flower she had made herself. You see us now, she said with a shy smile. Richard knelt to her level, his eyes wet. No, he said, you helped me see myself. Sometimes, the words that change a life don't come from a boardroom or a stage. Sometimes they come from a small voice in the rain, brave enough to say, they live on my street, sir. And if you're willing to stop and listen, you might just find your life changing too.